Welcome to this video. I hope you are doing well. So this video is about the final part of the chapter number 9. When we will finish this video, we will complete all the course of financing SMEs. I hope you have enjoyed the course. I know it was a little bit complicated with the coronavirus issues, but I think you have done well. You have made big achievements, and you have demonstrated all your seriousness, your hardworking ability during this course. So for this lectures, we will continue what we have done last time. Remember, last time we have examined how to perform financial planning for the long run. Now we will see how we'll use these financial plannings for the long run in order to value the equity of the venture. The thing is that once we will be able to value the equity of the ventures, we will be able also to increase our equity and to start negotiations with new shareholders or with new investors. Because once we know how much our equity is worthing, so we can discuss with other or with new investors in order to buy new shares in the company and to expand our activity. So remember last time we have seen how to start by stating the income statement pro forma or the pro forma income statement, then how to establish the pro forma balance sheet, then how to use the pro forma income statement and the balance sheet in order to find or to establish the pro forma cash flow statement. So once we have done all these three steps, we'll be able to find how much is the amount of money available for the shareholder by the end of each year, right? And once we have found how much the cash flow how much cash flow will be available for the equity holders for the upcoming years, we can use the technique of the present value in order to find the present value right now at T0 of the equity value, right? So this is the process. So we start by the income statement, and we should be able by the end to find the present value of the equity of the firm as well as of one single share of this equity. So these lectures will be divided into two parts. In the first part, we continue to treat the PDC company example. For the second part, we will try to resolve the 8th exercise of the chapter 9. So let's start by the PDC's company. Okay. Back everyone. So this is the PDC's Excel file. Remember, last time we have already done the projections for the income statement. See here, first sheet. Then the projections for the balance sheet. Then the projections for the capital expenditures, and finally the cash flow statements. So we have to proceed in that order, right? Start by the income statement, then move to the balance sheet, then the capital expenditures, and finally the cash flow statement. So once we have done that, it means that we are done with the financial statement planning for the long run. Now the challenge is how to use these financial plannings in order to find the equity value of the startup, because as you might know, a startup is still not listed into stock market, which means that the share is not negotiated publicly, which means that we do not know how much the share of the company or the stock of the company is worthing. So this is the biggest challenge for the startup managers in order to attract new investors, because these new investors will be skeptical about the real value of the stock of the firm. So we have to be able to find a technique or a process which will allow us to finally compute
the equity value. Then once we have done this, we can negotiate with new investors in order to attract them and convince them to bring their money into the capital of the firm, so we can make our firm growing more and more. So before finding this equity value, there is an intermediary step that we have to pass through before finding the equity value, which is computing the change in net operating working capital. So this is the formula. Change in NOWC is equal to the change in current assets minus the change in extra cash minus the change in current liabilities. And please pay attention to the fact that the change in extra cash is not the change in total cash. So you have to be able to distinguish between these three concepts: required cash, extra cash, and total cash. So for the required cash, it is the amount of money necessary for the firm in order to ensure its ordinary activity. So even if there is a cash available at the firm, we cannot distribute it to outsiders, because this required cash is necessary for the firm to continue its operating process. Now, if the firm is able to build cash beyond this required cash, this cash beyond the required cash is called the extra cash. So this one can be distributed to outsiders. Now, the sum of these two, required and extra cash, is equal to the total cash. So these are the difference between these three concepts. Now, as you can see, the change in NOWC is based on three components. So we have to compute each one of these three components apart, then combine them together in order to find the change in NOWC. So let's start by the first one, which is the change in current assets. Then we'll move to the change in extra cash, and finally, the change in current liabilities. So the yellow column is the current situation of the firm, and the numbers are given. Now, your job is to fill the missing sales for the upcoming years. So current assets for the year one, so equal. So we'll go to the balance sheet, and this is total current assets of year one. Then scroll to the right hand side until the year 5. Now for the year T minus 1, I have just to put a log by 1 year. So for year 1 it will be year 0, since it is T minus 1, so equal to this cell B7, and scroll until year 5. And finally, the change in current assets is equal to year T minus year T minus 1. So this is the change in current assets. Now we should repeat the same process for the extra cash and current liabilities. So extra cash, once again we go to the balance sheet. So this is the surplus cash, right? We scroll until the end. Now the extra cash at year T minus 1. And finally, the change in extra cash, T minus 1. Then the current liabilities. So where is the current liabilities? Here we are. So then we scroll until year 5. Now T minus 1. And finally, change between T and T minus 1 from year 0 to year 5. And finally, we can easily compute the change in net operating working capital equal to the change in current assets minus the change in extra cash minus change in current liabilities. And we scroll until the end of year 5. So this is the change in net operating working capital from year 0 to year 5, right? Now, keep that in mind and move to the equity valuation. So the equity valuation cash flows is equal to the net income plus depreciation. So let me just okay. Net income plus depreciation minus the change in net operating working capital minus the capex plus the net debt issue. So now we have computed the change in NOWC. We have all the required elements or components to compute the equity valuation cash flow. So this is for year 0, right? Now year 1, so the net income is available as the net income sheet. So net income here is the net income for year 1 until the year 5 plus the depreciation. So we go to the depreciation. Here we are, depreciation year 1 until the year 5 minus the change in net operating working capital. So equal minus, see, so I have to put the minus change. Go here for year 1 now minus the capex, or equal minus. So the capex is available at the cash flow statement or the capex sheet. So here is the capex. Sorry here. So so it's actually minus. This one is minus, right? Now plus net debt issue. So this information is available at the cash flow statement at net cash flow from financing activities. Say debt issue. So equal the debt issue. Then we scroll until year 5. And finally, we can compute the equity valuation cash flows. This is the sum of the above cells. Right? So the yellow color is for the present, while the green colors is for the projections for the futures. Now we can use these cash flows in order to find the present value of the equity. To do that, we can use one of the following two techniques. First, we can use the discounted cash flow technique, or we can use the net present value technique. And we should have, or we must have, the same results for both these two techniques. So let us check. Let us check the results. Let's start by the discounted cash flow method. Right. So this is the formula. The present value is equal to each one of the future cash flows divided by 1 plus discount rate, except for the final payment, this one. Because by the year 5 here, actually the firm will not cease its activity. الشركة ما راح توقف نشاطها. But at the beginning of the year 5, the firm will make a transition from a startup to a mature firm, right? So this is the point. And that's why we have to treat the final year with a special treatment. So I will put here a new color. So the green one is what we call the explicit period, which is the period or the future forecast for the firm whenever the firm is still considered as a startup, which is considered by a high increasing or high growth rate, but also the firm is characterized by high risk. While when we move to the blue color, so this means that the firm is moving from the startup stage to the maturity stage, which means also that the growth rate will become less than the previous growth rates, but also it will become constant. So this is what you call the constant growth rate model. And this final payment, as we will see later, will have a special treatment. Now, assume that PDC's current potential venture investors are looking for a relatively modest 25% annual rate of return on all the money at work in PDC, which means that for year 1, 2, 3, 4, the investors or the new investors will ask for 25% as return rate. Now, if PDC makes it to year 5, its risk would be lower. We assume that everyone agrees that by that time, PDC's investors, whoever they are, would only demand 18% return. So once we have reached the start of, or the beginning of the year 5, the investors will consider that the firm is less riskier, and because it is less riskier, they will ask for less return. Instead of 25% for year 1 until year 4, they will ask for 18%. The growth rate by the end of year 5 is also equal to 6%. Now let's build the following. So let me delete all these numbers. So let's build the following table. So we have periods, equity cash flow, final value, reversion value, and present value. So let's start by the equity cash flow. So we already have the required numbers. Yeah, just to scroll into the R5. So we are just moving these numbers to this table. That's it. Now the final value, which is about the 5th payment, right? Or the maturity payment. See here. So we are bringing 2 modifications to the final, to the final payment. This is the final payment, right? Which is 63,469. First, we will divide this final payment by R infinity minus G. So this is the first modification. This is what we call the final value. When you divide the final cash flow by R infinity minus G, we obtain the final value. So the R infinity is the required rate of return that will be asked by investors once the firm will reach the maturity phase, which is 18%. Now the G is the growth rate, or the constant growth rate, which is 6%, which means that the final value is simply equal to the final cash flow divided by the perpetuity rate of return, 18%, minus the growth rate, 6%, and that's it. This is the first modification. Now the second modification, we will divide this expression once again by 1 plus, see here, RV. So the R infinity, it is the RV, which is the rate of return used for the explicit period. For this case, it is equal to 25%. T minus 1. Though we are at the 5th period, we will use, see here, power 4. So this is the second modification that we have to bring to the final payment. So equal to the final value, this one, divided by 1 plus, the rate of return of the explicit period, which is 25%, power, not 5, but power 4. See here, power T minus 1. And that's it. So this is what's called the reversion value, which is the present value of the final value. Now the present value of all the cash flows, so for T0, no need to compute it because we are already at T0. So will keep the same value. Now for the following year, see here, we have just to apply the formula, guys. So value of cash flows 1, which is this one, equal, see, divide by 1 plus RV power 1. 1 plus the RV, which is 25%, right, power the number of periods. And we scroll until the year 4, not the year 5, because for the year 5 it is already computed until the year 4, right? So for this one, just to put equal to the reversion value. Now pay attention, see, for these two ones, they will be received at the same date, at T4, right? Even this one, at T4, because see, don't forget, the second modification is to bring the fifth payment to the fourth year, T minus 1. So as if we are receiving two cash flows during the same period, which is the fourth period. So I will fill it with a different color. So let's try the, I don't know, the orange color, right? Which means that these two values will be received at the same time. Now we can easily compute the present value of the equity or the valuation cash flows. So we have two techniques, whether we can use the pre-money valuation or the post-money valuation. When we say pre-money valuation, it is the present value of the futures, of the future cash flows without taking into account the current value of the firm. So we are just consider T1, T2, 3, 4, and not T0, right? So it will be equal to the sum of all these numbers. So this is the net present value, the present value of the equity at the pre-money valuation. Now if we want to take also into consideration the current value of the equity, all we have to do is just to add the present or the equity cash flow at T0, and that's it. See, as simple as that. Now the second technique is the net present value. So this is a built-in formula into Excel. So all you have to do is just to click on equal NPV and see automatically, Excel will give you suggestion for the wanted formula. So all you have to do is just to click on it and see here. So these are the required data for the NPV formula. So we have to start by the rate, which is discount rate, which is 25%. All right. Then the value 1, 2, 3 are the values for the future cash flows. Right. The future cash flows, not the discounted one, because already NPV function will make the discount. So equal, see, cash flow 1, 2, 3. Now for the fourth cash flow, remember we have two cash flows. We have this one plus this one. All right. And we have the NPV, which is equal to C, present value equity. Now if we want to include the current value of the equity, all you have to do is just to add the equity cash flows, and that's it. Okay, so we are done with this chapter. Okay, everyone, so we have reached the end of the chapter 9 and the end of this course. I hope this video will be helpful for you. So just wait for 2 more videos. The first one will be for exercise 8 for this 9th chapter, and another video which will treat a mini case for chapter 6. I think these two videos or the next two videos will be helpful for you for the preparation of your final exam. So thank you for all your efforts during this term. You have did great. You have done great. Sorry. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you have accomplished, and I wish you all the best for the final exam and for your upcoming career. Thank you and bye bye. See you soon, inshallah.